Now, Talbert said that I had worked in Washington perhaps longer than I care to remember. That's true. But I'm grateful for that experience because it now, I think, gives me a platform on which to talk about the fact that Washington is not our solution. I grew up in South Carolina. I was born in Charleston, lived in the Low Country, lived in Aiken for a number of years. I actually started first grade and finished high school in Aiken. Went off to the Citadel for my college training. So I have deep roots in this state. But I always wanted to play on a larger stage. I always wanted to go and work on a national and global level. That was my calling back in 1980, 81, when I went to Washington to work in the Reagan administration as a Reagan appointee. And I worked there for some 25 years as a specialist in national security, defense, and foreign policy, ending up, as Albert said, as Director of Defense and Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation, which is a sort of high priesthood of the inside the Beltway conservatives. And I've completely walked away from all of that. God has given me the grace and the vision to see how fruitless and how rotten and corrupt that had all become. So my focus has shifted completely now back to state and regional efforts. If we are going to reclaim our liberty, it's going to have to be done at this level. It is not going to come from Washington. This is not to say that we should have no concern about what's happening there. This is not to say that we shouldn't vote for congressional and national offices. But if we look to Washington for our solution, we're going to be disappointed, as we have been time and time again. And we see the same old mantra going on now. There's this unprecedented ferment percolating up from just about every state in the Union, represented by many of the groups that are here: the Tea Party, Campaign for Liberty, 912, fair tax groups, gun owners. And so what is happening is the Republican Party is coming along and saying, just come and give all of that energy and outrage and passion to us, and we will make things right. And I say this as until recently, a lifelong Republican. I helped to build the Republican Party in this state, starting in the Goldwater years. I ran for office twice as a Republican. I was a Republican appointee in a Reagan administration, and then again as a Republican staffer on the Senate Armed Services Committee, where I worked for the late Senator Strom Thurmond. So I have seen Washington up close and personal and from the inside, and I can say the same about the Republican Party. I've seen it up close and personal from the inside, and I can tell you that if we're looking to either one of those entities for our deliverance, then we might as well put a gun to our head right now and pull the trigger. It will not happen. In 1996, when I was at the Heritage Foundation, I was invited to be on the Republican Platform Committee staff for that year's election cycle. And the Republican National Committee flew me and a number of people out to San Diego. This is the year that Bob Dole was our presidential candidate and Jack Kemp the vice presidential candidate. And so I went out to San Diego a week ahead of the Republican National Convention to write the platform. Well, first we learned from Dole himself, but also from an assorted array of Republican insiders, what I call the apparatchiks, or the permanent party establishment types of the Republican Party, that nobody was going to pay any attention to the platform. You guys go and write it, but it's basically window dressing designed to appeal to those naive rubes out there in the heartland. So that was the first thing that I began to see about this whole process of national politics. But this was a real eye-opener for me. This is a first-hand eyewitness account. We would gather together after the working sessions on the platform and meet to have drinks and talk. And we met in La Jolla, California, near San Diego, at the beach mansion of some Republican millionaire donor. And once again, it was the naive, idealistic types like me thrown in together as drinking buddies with the deep permanent party apparatchiks of the Republican Party. And it was like a veil was pulled back. I remember one gentleman in particular whose job was really to be the bag man, the money courier between the big corporations and the Republican National Committee. And I forget how we got off on this. This was obviously a time when conservative Southerners, Christian right, which obviously had a strong base in the Bible Belt of the South, people like you and I were really the real strength of the Republican Party. This is where its power really rested. And I guess it's no credit to me that these gentlemen were willing to unburden themselves. I guess they thought I was reliable from their perspective and was one of them. Anyway, this gentleman happened to remark to me when we got off on the topic of white conservative Southerners, white Christian Southerners, and he scoffed with the sort of sneering contempt that only a Washingtonian can display. And he said, those people, meaning you, meaning me, those people are our niggers. So just let that sink in for a minute. We are simply political fodder for a thoroughly corrupt, self-serving, dishonest political establishment whose only real goal in politics is to perpetuate its power, to perpetuate its ability to plunder you and me of our wealth. And of course, in order to do that, they have to take away our liberty.